You're standing in ash. The fire came through 3 days ago, and you just ran with your family into the mountains because the highways were parking lots of burning cars. Now you're beside a stream, and your kids haven't eaten since yesterday morning. You have a fishing rod. The water is full of trout, you can see them. And you freeze. Because you don't have a fishing license, it's illegal, you could be fined, you could be arrested. Your brain, still wired for the world that existed last week, cannot reconcile what your body knows. That law and biology are now in direct conflict, and only one of them cares whether your children live. This is the moment when you realize the truth. The systems didn't just fail, they were designed to fail you. Because a population that can save itself doesn't need saving. And a population that doesn't need saving doesn't need permission. And permission, not safety, not order, not prosperity, permission is the whole point. We're going to talk about 7 skills. 7 techniques that humans have used for thousands of years to survive. Skills that are being quietly, systematically legislated out of existence. Not banned outright, that would be too obvious. Instead, they're being wrapped in permits, licenses, certifications, and fees until they're functionally illegal for anyone without resources. The message is clear. You can learn to depend on the system, or you can learn to starve legally. Let's start with the most absurd one. The one that makes you realize we've crossed into a level of controlled insanity that should be physically impossible. Skill Hashon, rainwater harvesting. It falls from the sky. You didn't make it. You didn't buy it. It lands on your roof. And in 23 states, collecting it without a permit or a tool is illegal. Let that sit for a second. Water falls from the atmosphere onto your property, and the government has decided that water belongs to someone else. In Colorado, until very recently, it was completely illegal to harvest rainwater. The state claimed that rain belonged to downstream water rights holders. You could watch it pour off your roof into the dirt, but if you caught it in a barrel, you were a criminal. Oregon, Utah, Nevada, same thing. Heavy restrictions, permits required, fees, inspections, approved materials only. A DIY system you can build for $100, illegal. A system installed by a licensed contractor with certified components, may be legal if you fill out the right forms and wait 6 months and pay $2,000. The rationale is always dressed in the language of environmentalism or public safety. But let's follow the incentive structure. Municipal water is metered. Every gallon you use is a gallon they charge you for. Every gallon you collect from the sky is a gallon outside the system, outside the tax base, outside the control grid. And a person who doesn't need water from the system is a person who can't be controlled by threatening to turn off the water. Because that's what water dependency really is, a control mechanism. You think it's a utility, it's actually a leash, and they will use it. History is very clear on this. When populations become inconvenient, when neighborhoods need to be cleared, when dissent needs to be discouraged, the water gets shut off. It's quiet, it's clean, it's deniable, and it works. Now imagine the grid goes down. Earthquake, cyber attack, infrastructure collapse, doesn't matter. The water treatment plant stops running, the pumps die, the pressure drops to 0, your tap goes dry, and you know what happens next? The stores are emptied of bottled water in 4 hours. People start hoarding, prices spike, violence starts by day 2. Meanwhile, it's raining. You're dying of thirst in the rain. Because you don't know how to catch it, filter it, store it. Because that knowledge has been regulated into obscurity. Here's how you do it. Gutter system, downspout, first flush diverter to get rid of the initial dirty water from the roof, then into a food-grade barrel with a spigot. You can calculate it. 1 inch of rain on 1,000 square feet of roof gives you about 600 gallons. A family of 4 needs about 1 gallon per person per day for drinking. You do the math. 1 good storm can keep you alive for weeks. Storage. Opaque containers so algae doesn't grow. Covered so mosquitoes don't breed. Elevated so you get gravity-fed pressure. Food-grade plastic or stainless steel, nothing that leaches chemicals. Purification. Boil it for 1 minute, rolling boil, and you've killed everything. Or use a sand, gravel, charcoal filter for sediment and some pathogens. Or chemical tablets, chlorine dioxide. Or a UV sterilizer if you still have power. The technology is ancient. It's simple. It's free. And it's illegal. Your grandmother didn't need a permit to collect rain. You do. Think about what that means. Think about what changed. It's not the rain. It's not the science. It's the incentive structure. A self-sufficient population is an ungovernable population, and governments don't like things they can't govern. So they make it complicated, they make it expensive, they make it illegal. And then when the crisis comes, you die of thirst while they shrug and say, "We tried to help, but the systems were overwhelmed." The systems were always going to be overwhelmed. That's not a bug. That's the design. Skill. #2 Off-grid energy generation. You'd think energy independence would be encouraged. You'd think generating your own power clean, renewable, decentralized would be exactly what governments want. You'd be wrong. In many jurisdictions, it's illegal to disconnect from the electrical grid, even if you produce all your own power. Even if you use 0 kilowatt hours from the utility company, you're still required to pay a connection fee. In Florida, a woman was legally ordered to connect to the municipal grid or face eviction from her own home. In California, off-grid homes have been condemned as uninhabitable. The logic is Orwellian. You must remain dependent, even when you don't need to be. Let's talk about microhydro and small wind turbines, two energy sources that actually work when solar doesn't. Microhydro uses flowing water to spin a turbine. If you have a stream on your property with even a modest flow rate and a few feet of elevation drop, you can generate electricity 24 hours a day. It's constant, it's reliable, it doesn't care if it's cloudy. But here's the legal reality. To install a microhydro system, you need water rights permits, which can take years and cost thousands of dollars. You need environmental impact studies. You need approval from Fish and Wildlife. If your system generates more than 5 kilowatts, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission gets involved. We're talking about enough power to run a household, and you need federal permission. Wind turbines? Same nightmare. Zoning approval often denied because someone thinks it's ugly. Height restrictions. Noise permits. In some areas, the FAA has to approve it because it might interfere with aircraft. And if you live in a neighborhood with a homeowners association, forget it. They'll ban it outright as an eyesore. Why? Follow the money. Utility companies lose customers when people go off-grid. That's lost revenue, so they lobby for regulations. They get laws passed that force you to stay connected. They call it safety or grid stability, but what they mean is we need your money. And it's not just about money, it's about control. A population dependent on centralized energy is a population that can be managed. Smart meters aren't just for billing, they're surveillance devices. They track your usage patterns. They can be remotely shut off. If you become inconvenient, your power goes away. But if you're off-grid, generating your own electricity, you're outside that system. You're unswitch offable. Now imagine a grid collapse. Cyber attack, solar flare, cascading failure across interconnected grids. It's not hypothetical, it's happened regionally, and experts say a national level event is a matter of when, not if. Your solar panels might keep the lights on during the day, but at night you're dark. And in 5 to 10 years, your battery bank is dead. Lithium-ion batteries degrade. They don't last forever. But a microhydro system with a stream that never stops flowing? That's electricity forever. A small wind turbine on a ridgeline with consistent wind, that's power when solar fails. These are the systems that actually provide resilience, and they're the ones being strangled by regulation. Here's the science. Microhydro power calculation. Flow rate times head times efficiency times 9.81. Flow rate is gallons per minute. Head is the vertical drop in feet. Efficiency is your turbine design, usually around 60 to 70%. A stream flowing at 50 gallons per minute with a 20-foot drop can generate about 200 watts continuously. That's 4.8 kilowatt hours per day, enough to run a refrigerator, lights, and a laptop. You can build it with PVC pipe as a penstock to carry the water, a salvage car alternator as the generator, and 3D printed turbine blades from open source designs you can find online. Total cost, a few $100s, but the permit costs thousands. So most people don't bother, and the knowledge dies. Wind turbines, you want a tip speed ratio of 6 to 8, that's the speed of the blade tip relative to the wind speed. Vertical axis turbines like Savonius or Darius designs work in turbulent wind, lower efficiency but more forgiving. Horizontal axis turbines are more efficient but need clean airflow. You can build one from PVC blades, a bike wheel hub, and a car alternator. Same principle, ancient technology, illegal to deploy without permission. The pattern is always the same. The technology is simple, the science is sound, the cost is low, and the barriers are regulatory. Because a person who can generate their own power is a person who doesn't need the system. And the system cannot tolerate that. Water flows, wind blows, you're not allowed to touch them. Dependency isn't an accident, it's a policy. Skill. #3 Amateur radio and mesh networks. When the cell towers go down, and they will, how do you communicate? How do you coordinate with family? How do you find out what's happening beyond your line of sight? The answer for the last century has been amateur radio. Ham radio operators can talk across the country, across the world, with no infrastructure, just a radio, an antenna, and the physics of radio waves bouncing off the ionosphere. But it's illegal to transmit without a license. In the United States, the FCC requires you to pass an exam, pay a fee, and register. Your name, address, and call sign become public record, searchable by anyone. So if you want the ability to communicate independently, you have to put yourself in a database. The government knows exactly who has off-grid communication capability. There are 3 license levels: technician, general, extra. Each one unlocks more frequencies. The most useful frequencies, the ones that let you communicate globally, require the higher licenses. And here's the kicker. Encryption is banned on amateur radio frequencies. You're not allowed to have a private conversation. Every transmission is public. The stated reason is that ham radio is supposed to be a public service. The real reason is that the government wants to monitor all off-grid communication. Now, there are unlicensed options. Mesh networks using LoRa technology devices that communicate directly with each other, no towers, no internet, forming self-healing networks. Meshtastic is one example. It's legal under Part 15 rules for low-power unlicensed devices, for now, but governments can and do restrict or ban these during emergencies. And encrypted communication on unlicensed bands can be classified as illegal broadcasting. Why do governments care? Because communication is coordination, and coordination is power. Every resistance movement, every protest, every uprising in history has depended on the ability to communicate outside official channels. Governments know this. That's why authoritarian regimes shut down the internet and cell networks first. That's why decentralized communication is seen as a threat. The pattern: licensing equals surveillance. You can have the capability, but only if we know who you are. And you can communicate, but only if we can listen. Privacy is not permitted. Let's talk about the scenario. Grid down. Cell towers are dead, no power to run them, or they're overloaded and crashed. The internet is gone. You have no way to reach your family across town. No way to know if the grocery store is open or looted. No way to call for help. No way to receive information. You're isolated. And isolation in a crisis is a death sentence. Meanwhile, someone with a ham radio and an antenna hears traffic on the emergency nets. They know which roads are blocked. They know where aid is being distributed. They coordinate with their community. They survive because they can communicate. Here's how it works. Radio waves are electromagnetic radiation. Different frequencies propagate differently. HF shortwave, 330 MHz, bounces off the ionosphere skywave propagation and can travel thousands of miles. VHF and UHF, 30 MHz and up, are line of sight, maybe 50 miles with a good antenna and elevation. Digital modes let you send text, images, even emails over radio. You can learn the theory for free online. Websites like hamstudy.org have all the exam material. The test costs $15. You accept that you're now in a database, but you gain legal access to the technology. Then you study beyond the license. You learn how to build antennas. Dipoles are just 2 wires, each a quarter wavelength long, fed in the center. Wavelength in meters equals 300 divided by frequency in megahertz. For 7 megahertz, that's about 43 meters, so your dipole is about 21 meters total. String it between trees, you're on the air. Or you go the mesh network route. LoRa boards cost $30 to $60. Flash open source firmware like Meshtastic. Set up encrypted channels legal under Part 15 for now. Build a local network with friends and family. When the towers go down, you stay connected. But here's the thing. Listening is always legal. You don't need a license to receive. A $25 software-defined radio dongle and free software turns your computer into a receiver that covers almost the entire spectrum. You can learn to decode signals, understand traffic, practice without transmitting. The knowledge is accessible. The barrier is artificial. The ability to speak freely without permission is being licensed out of existence. First they track you, then they monitor you, then, when it matters, they shut you down, or they just round up everyone in the database. You think that's paranoid? Ask yourself why they need to know where you live and publish it in a searchable database. Ask yourself why encryption is banned. Ask yourself what happens to decentralized communicators when centralized power feels threatened. The answer is always the same. They don't want you to be able to coordinate outside their control. A population that can't communicate is a population that can't organize. And a population that can't organize is a population that can't resist. Skill #4 food preservation without refrigeration. Your refrigerator is a dependency trap. It works as long as the grid works. The moment the power goes out, you have about 48 hours before everything inside starts to rot. If you have a freezer full of meat, hundreds of pounds, thousands of dollars, months of food security, it's gone in 2 days. And you can't stop it because you don't know how. For thousands of years, humans preserved food without electricity, curing, smoking, fermenting, canning, root cellaring. These methods work, they're proven, they're low-tech, and they're being regulated into extinction. Here's the legal reality. It's illegal to sell home-preserved food in most states without a commercial kitchen. Even giving away preserved food can trigger health department regulations. The rationale is public safety, but the effect is to eliminate decentralized food preservation knowledge and infrastructure. Cottage food laws exist in some states, but they're restrictive limited products, limited revenue, heavy documentation. Raw milk is illegal in many states. It has to be pasteurized. Fermented raw dairy, which is how humans preserved milk for millennia, is double illegal. Fermented meats like traditional salami are heavily regulated or outright banned for sale. Home use is technically legal, but the knowledge is disappearing because no one is teaching it. Why? Because the industrial food system depends on your dependency. You buy food from the grocery store. The grocery store is stocked by centralized supply chains. Those supply chains are fragile. 3 days without trucks and the shelves are empty. That's not a conspiracy theory, it's logistics. Just-in-time delivery means no buffer. One disruption and the system collapses. But if you know how to preserve food, you're outside that system. You can hunt or raise animals, preserve the meat, and eat for months. You can ferment vegetables and store them without refrigeration. You're not dependent on the trucks. And a population that isn't dependent on the food supply is a population that can't be starved into submission. The scenario: power grid fails. Your freezer thaws. Hundreds of pounds of meat rot. You have no way to preserve the deer you just shot. You catch fish, but they spoil before you can eat them. You're surrounded by food you can't keep. You starve despite abundance because you lack the knowledge. Here's how you do it. Salt curing. 2 to 3% salt by weight, plus a tiny amount of sodium nitrite Prague powder #1, which prevents botulism and keeps the meat pink. Rub it on the meat, vacuum seal or wrap tightly, refrigerate for 7 to 14 days. The salt draws out moisture and creates an environment hostile to bacteria. Rinse, dry, and you have bacon or ham that lasts months without refrigeration. Smoking. Cold smoke below 90 degrees Fahrenheit preserves without cooking, but you need to cure the meat first. Hot smoke at 200 to 250 degrees cooks and preserves. The smoke contains antimicrobial compounds. Use hardwoods, hickory, apple, cherry. Avoid pine or cedar, they're resinous and toxic. Fermentation. This is controlled rot. You submerge vegetables in a 2 to 5% salt brine, keep them below the liquid surface, anaerobic conditions and beneficial lactobacillus bacteria go to work. They produce lactic acid, which drops the pH and kills pathogens. Sauerkraut, kimchi, pickles, hot sauce, all fermented, all shelf-stable for months, all nutritionally superior to fresh vegetables because fermentation creates vitamins and probiotics. Pressure canning. Water bath canning only works for high-acid foods like fruits and pickles. Low-acid foods, meat, vegetables, soups, require pressure canning. You need to reach 240 degrees Fahrenheit to kill botulism spores, and that requires pressure. Follow USDA guidelines exactly. Timing and pressure vary by altitude. Done correctly, you have food that lasts years. Root cellaring. Cool, humid, dark. 32 to 40 degrees, 80 to 95% humidity. Stores potatoes, carrots, beets, turnips, apples. Not together, apples and onions release gases that spoil other produce. A basement corner, a buried container, an earthworm structure. No power needed. Food lasts months. These techniques are older than civilization. Your great-grandparents didn't need a license to feed their family through winter. Now you do. That's not progress. That's control. Because a population dependent on grocery stores is a population that obeys when the trucks stop coming. Skill #5, wildcrafting and medicinal plants. The pharmacy empties in 48 hours during a crisis. Prescription medications require manufacturing infrastructure, cold chain logistics, distribution networks. All of it depends on the grid, on trucks, on systems that fail. Antibiotics have expiration dates. Insulin requires refrigeration. Painkillers run out. And then what? For most of human history, medicine grew in the ground. Yarrow stops bleeding and reduces inflammation. Plantain draws out infections. Pine resin is antiseptic and seals wounds. Willow bark contains salicylic acid, the precursor to aspirin, and treats pain and fever. Elderberry is antiviral. Dandelion supports liver function and is entirely edible. These plants are everywhere. They're free, they're renewable, and using them is becoming illegal. The FDA makes it illegal to claim health benefits for plants without approval, and approval costs millions of dollars and takes years. You can't patent a plant, so no pharmaceutical company will fund the studies. The result? Traditional plant medicine is classified as unproven and pushed out of the market. Selling herbal remedies with medical claims is regulated as selling drugs. Even sharing information can be prosecuted as practicing medicine without a license. Foraging itself is restricted. National and state parks make it illegal to harvest plants. Private property requires permission, and trespassing charges apply. Some municipalities ban foraging on public land, including parks and sidewalks. Protected species lists mean that harvesting certain plants results in fines or jail time, even if those plants have medicinal value and aren't actually endangered. Growing certain medicinal plants is illegal. The opium poppy Papaver somniferum is legal to grow as an ornamental flower but illegal to harvest for pain relief, even though it's been used for that purpose for thousands of years. Cannabis is federally Schedule 1 despite state-level legalization. Kratom is banned in multiple states. Kava and ephedra are restricted. The pattern is clear. Plants that provide pain relief, mental clarity, or energy without a prescription are systematically criminalized. Why? Because the pharmaceutical industry can't control what grows in your backyard. They can't patent it. They can't monopolize it. Cheap, effective plant medicine is a threat to a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So they lobby for regulations that classify herbalism as dangerous, unscientific, unregulated. They push licensing requirements that exclude traditional practitioners. They frame it as consumer protection, but the effect is market capture. And on the government side, a population dependent on prescriptions is a controllable population. Healthcare access becomes leverage. Insurance, costs, availability, these are tools of compliance. A person who can treat their own wounds, manage their own pain, and fight infections with plants they foraged is a person outside the medical control grid. The scenario: pharmacies are empty, hospitals are overwhelmed. You have an infected wound. No antibiotics, no painkillers, no antiseptics. The infection spreads. Sepsis begins. You die from something that could have been treated with a poultice of plantain leaf and pine resin. The cure was growing at your feet, and you didn't know its name. Here's how you learn this without dying. Plant identification is critical. Mistakes kill. Never guess. Use multiple sources. Field guides, apps like iNaturalist, expert confirmation. Learn plant families. The Apiaceae family includes carrots and parsley, but also poison hemlock. Know the difference. Start with easy, unmistakable plants. Dandelion has no toxic lookalikes. Plantain broadleaf or narrowleaf has distinctive parallel veins. Yarrow has feathery leaves and flat-topped flower clusters. Pine and spruce are obvious conifers. Master these first. Harvest ethically and legally. The 1 in 20 rule: take one plant, leave 20. Harvest from your own property or with explicit permission. Avoid roadsides contaminated with exhaust residue, heavy metals, pesticides. Find clean, wild areas. Preparation methods. A poultice is crushed fresh plant applied directly to a wound. An infusion is tea. Pour boiling water over leaves. Steep 10 to 15 minutes. A decoction is for tougher parts like roots and bark. Boil for 20 to 30 minutes. A tincture is plant material soaked in high-proof alcohol for weeks, then strained. It preserves the medicine for years. Understand the pharmacology. Active compounds include alkaloids, flavonoids, tannins, essential oils. Mechanisms. Astringents tighten tissue and stop bleeding. Antimicrobials kill bacteria. Anti-inflammatories reduce swelling. Dosage matters. Even safe plants can be toxic in excessive amounts. Build a reference library. Physical books, not digital. No power means no ebooks. Field guides specific to your region. Herbals like Peterson's Medicinal Plants. The Herbal Medicine Maker's Handbook. Print them. store them, study them. The knowledge is ancient. Your ancestors didn't need a degree to know which plants healed and which plants killed. That knowledge kept them alive. Now it's being erased, not through force, but through regulation and neglect. The plants still grow, but soon no one will remember their names. The medicine is at your feet, but you need permission to pick it and a license to know what it does. This is what healthcare has become. Not healing, control, skill #6, animal trapping and snaring. Hunting with a gun is loud. It requires ammunition, which is finite. It requires your presence, you have to be there, waiting, hoping an animal walks into your line of sight. It's inefficient. A trap, on the other hand, works 24 hours a day. It's silent. It requires no ammunition. You set it and go do something else. 10 traps mean 10 times the odds. It's the most efficient way to acquire protein in a survival situation. And it's illegal almost everywhere. Trapping requires a separate license from hunting, and it's often more expensive. There are restricted seasons, usually winter only. Traps must be registered. You're required to check them every 24 hours in most states. Snares are heavily restricted or outright banned. California, Washington, and others prohibit snares entirely. The rationale is that they're inhumane and non-selective. They might catch pets or non-target animals. Where snares are legal, there are heavy restrictions. Specific cable diameters, breakaway locks, marking requirements. Body gripping traps like coney bear traps are often illegal except for underwater sets. Leg hold traps are banned or restricted to certain sizes. Deadfalls, the most primitive and effective trap, used by humans for tens of thousands of years, are typically illegal. They're classified as dangerous. You can't trap near trails, roads, or residences. On private land, you need the landowner's permission. On public land, trapping is often prohibited entirely. And even in a survival emergency, the law is unclear. Technically, it's legal to trap in a life-threatening survival situation, but the burden of proof is on you after the fact. A game warden can still cite you, arrest you, confiscate your equipment, and force you to prove in court that you were actually starving. Why the restrictions? Animal rights groups like PETA and the Humane Society lobby heavily against trapping. They frame it as cruel, even though quick kill traps are faster and more humane than many hunting methods. But more fundamentally, trapping is a low-barrier skill. Anyone can learn it quickly, it's cheap, it's effective, it democratizes food acquisition, and governments don't want that. They want food access to be controlled. Expensive rifles, limited hunting seasons, lottery-based tag systems, these are barriers. They ensure that only people with resources and time can hunt. Trapping, on the other hand, is egalitarian. A homeless person with $20 of wire and knowledge can feed themselves. That's dangerous, not to wildlife, to control structures. The scenario, the grid is down. You have a rifle and 500 rounds. You hunt for food. But small game near civilization is pressured quickly. Other people are hunting too. Gunfire attracts dangerous attention. You burn through ammunition. In 6 months, you're out. Then what? Meanwhile, someone with 10 snares catches rabbits every other day, silently, reliably, indefinitely. No ammunition, no noise, just knowledge and wire. Here's how you do it. A simple snare is a loop of wire with a slip lock. It tightens when the animal pulls but doesn't loosen. Use 20 to 24 gauge wire, brass or stainless steel. Form a loop 4 to 6 inches in diameter for rabbits and squirrels. Anchor it to a tree or stake with a swivel so the animal can't twist free. Placement is everything. Look for trails, worn paths in grass, dirt, or snow. Animals are creatures of habit. They use the same routes. Set your snare where terrain funnels them, between rocks, logs, or brush. The bottom of the loop should be at the animal's head height. You can estimate size from tracks. A deadfall uses a figure 4 trigger, 3 sticks carved with notches that interlock. A heavy rock or log is propped up by the trigger. Bait is placed on the trigger stick. The animal disturbs the bait. The sticks collapse. The weight falls and kills. No modern materials needed. Infinite resets. It's been used for 200,000 years. It's illegal in most places now. Reading sign. Scat tells you species and freshness. Tracks tell you size, species, and direction. Runs trails used repeatedly are the best places for traps. Feeding sign like gnawed bark or nut caches tells you where animals are active. Ethics and efficiency. Check traps frequently to minimize suffering. Use kill traps when possible. Don't waste the animal. Use meat, hide, sinew, bones. This isn't sport, it's survival. Study now, know the techniques, understand the laws so you know what's illegal and why. When the time comes, you'll know what to do. And you'll do it because legality becomes irrelevant when your children are starving. For 200,000 years, humans fed themselves with snares. Now it's a crime. Starvation with permission is legal. Eating without permission is not. Skill #7, greywater recycling, and human manure composting. Let's talk about shit. Specifically, what happens when the toilets stop flushing? Because they will. Sewage systems require electricity to run pumps. No power means no sewage treatment. Toilets back up. Streets fill with raw sewage. Cholera, dysentery, hepatitis A, typhoid waterborne diseases kill more people in disasters than violence or starvation. Sanitation is survival priority number 2, right after water. And managing it yourself is illegal. Grey water is used water from sinks, showers, and laundry, not toilets. It's slightly dirty but not biohazardous. You can reuse it for irrigation, for flushing toilets, for cleaning. It reduces freshwater demand by 50 to 80%. But in most jurisdictions, it's illegal to use grey water without permits. Where it is legal, you need a licensed plumber to install the system, inspections, and approved commercial kits that cost thousands. A DIY system, a bucket under the sink that you pour on your garden, is a code violation. Human manure composting is the process of composting human feces into safe, pathogen-free soil. Done correctly, hot composting at temperatures of 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit kills bacteria, viruses, and parasites in 6 to 12 months. The result is nutrient-rich compost, but it's classified as improper waste disposal in most urban and suburban areas. Health codes treat human waste as biohazardous material requiring licensed disposal. Composting toilets are legal only if they're commercially manufactured, permitted, and inspected. A DIY bucket system is illegal. Why? Because water and sewer services are revenue streams. Self-sufficient sanitation systems mean lost income for utilities. But more importantly, sanitation access is leverage. Use our system or live in filth is the implicit threat. It's forced compliance. And a population dependent on centralized sewage is a population that can be controlled by shutting off access. The public health rationale is a pretext. Properly managed grey water and human manure systems are safer than failing municipal systems. But decentralized sanitation is harder to control, harder to monetize, harder to regulate. So it's criminalized. The scenario: sewage pumps fail, toilets overflow, you can't flush, you can't shower, water backs up, the streets stink, disease spreads, fresh water is contaminated. People start dying from diarrhea. You didn't know how to dig a latrine properly, how to compost waste safely, how to manage sanitation without infrastructure. So you get sick, and you die. Here's how you do it. Grey water recycling at the simplest level. Divert your sink or shower drain into a bucket, then pour it on your garden. Don't store it, bacteria multiply fast. Use biodegradable soaps, nothing with bleach or boron. Subsurface irrigation only, don't spray it in the air. Avoid using it on root vegetables, use it on trees and ornamentals. A more sophisticated system is a branch drain. Pipes split the grey water flow to multiple mulch basins. Gravity fed, no pump needed. The mulch filters the water as it percolates into the soil. This is ancient technology. It works. And it's illegal without permits. Human manure composting, the Jenkins method. Use a 5-gallon bucket as a toilet. After each use, cover with 2 to 3 inches of carbon material, sawdust, wood chips, shredded leaves. When the bucket is full, dump it into an outdoor compost bin. The bin should be at least 1 cubic meter, 3 feet on each side. Layer human manure with kitchen scraps and yard waste. Cover each addition with carbon. Let it sit for 12 to 24 months. The longer, the safer. The science: thermophilic composting generates heat. 130 degrees Fahrenheit kills most pathogens. 160 degrees kills everything, including roundworm eggs, which are the most resistant. You need a compost thermometer to monitor core temperature. Time plus temperature equals safety. After a year or more, what you have is soil. Clean, safe, nutrient-rich soil. For an emergency latrine, dig a cat hole, 6 to 8 inches deep, at least 200 feet from any water source. Squat, do your business, cover it immediately with soil. For longer-term use, dig a deeper pit latrine, 3 feet or more, use it for several days or weeks, then cover it fully and dig a new one. Grey water can be filtered through sand and gravel to remove particulates. It's not drinking water, but it's safer for irrigation. Bucket, screen, gravel layer, sand layer, collection container. Simple physics. Ancient technology. You produce waste every day. The system wants you helpless when they can't take it away. Knowing how to manage it yourself is now a crime. Let that sink in. The pattern. Competence is the real threat. 7 skills, 7 techniques that make you less dependent on utilities, corporations, and government. Water, energy, communication, food preservation, medicine, protein, sanitation, the foundational elements of survival. And every single one is being criminalized, licensed, or regulated into inaccessibility. This is not a coincidence. This is not bureaucratic incompetence. This is a pattern, and the pattern has a purpose. A population that needs the system will obey the system. If you depend on municipal water, they can turn it off. If you depend on the electrical grid, they can cut your power. If you depend on cell networks, they can shut down your communication. If you depend on grocery stores, they can starve you. If you depend on pharmacies, they can deny you medicine. If you depend on the sewage system, they can drown you in your own waste. Dependency is control. And every regulation, every permit, every license, every restriction we've discussed serves one purpose: to enforce dependency. Self-sufficient populations are ungovernable. You can't threaten someone who doesn't need you. You can't coerce someone who can survive without your infrastructure. You can't control someone who has water, power, food, medicine, and sanitation independent of your systems. So the systems make independence illegal, not overtly, not honestly. They wrap it in the language of safety, environmentalism, public health, consumer protection. They say it's about preventing contamination, stopping disease, protecting wildlife, ensuring quality. But the effect is the same. You are not allowed to take care of yourself. You must depend on us, and if you don't, you're a criminal. Look at the historical pattern. 100 years ago, the skills we've discussed were normal, universal. Your great-grandparents collected rainwater, preserved food, used plant medicine, trapped game, managed their own waste. They didn't need permits. They didn't need licenses. They didn't need permission. They were self-sufficient by default, because infrastructure didn't reach most of the population. Then infrastructure expanded. Electricity, plumbing, roads, telecommunications, and with infrastructure came dependence. And with dependence came control. And with control came regulations to ensure no one could opt out. The skills didn't become dangerous. The knowledge didn't become obsolete. What changed was the incentive structure. Governments realized that a dependent population is a manageable population. Corporations realized that dependency is profit. And together, they built a regulatory framework that criminalizes independence. They don't ban the skills outright. That would be too obvious. Instead, they make them expensive, complicated, restricted. You can collect rainwater if you pay for the permit, hire the licensed contractor, use the approved materials, submit to inspections. You can go off-grid if you jump through enough hoops. You can trap if you buy the license, follow the restrictions, and accept the surveillance. The barrier isn't absolute. It's financial and bureaucratic, which means it affects the poor and the non-compliant disproportionately. The wealthy can afford the permits. The obedient will jump through the hoops. But the average person, the one who just wants to be left alone and take care of their family, is priced out, regulated, out, criminalized, and the knowledge dies, because if practicing a skill is illegal, no one teaches it. If using a technique requires a license, it becomes specialized rather than universal. If talking about it can get you prosecuted, people stop talking. The skills fade from common knowledge. They become fringe, weird, prepper stuff. And within a generation or two, they're forgotten entirely. That's the endgame. A population that cannot collect water, generate power, communicate independently, preserve food, treat illness, feed itself, or manage waste. A population that must comply to survive. A population that will do anything to keep the systems running because without the systems, they die. And when the systems fail, not if, when they will die. Because dependency is only safe when the systems are stable. And the systems are not stable, they're fragile, interconnected, vulnerable. One cyber attack, one solar flare, one economic collapse, one cascading infrastructure failure, and it all comes down. And the people who knew how to survive without it will be criminals. But they'll be alive. The window is closing. Skills move through a life cycle. Legal, common, universal, then licensed, restricted, specialized, then banned, forgotten, extinct. We're watching it happen in real time. Rainwater harvesting, free, then permitted, then illegal in Colorado. Now partially legal again after public backlash, but still restricted. The trajectory is clear. Trapping, universal, then licensed, then restricted, now banned in multiple states. Each step takes a generation. Each step is framed as progress. Each step tightens the noose. And it's accelerating. The internet is being sanitized. YouTube removes dangerous how-to videos. Publishers drop controversial survival manuals. Forums get shut down for liability. The information is being memory holed. Not by burning books, but by deleting files. By demonetizing creators. By deplatforming knowledge. If you don't learn these skills now, you won't get another chance. The window is closing. Not because the skills are becoming impossible, but because the knowledge is being suppressed and the practice is being criminalized. Another generation, and these techniques will be as forgotten as flint knapping. They'll exist in academic texts and historical reenactments, but not in living practice. And here's the asymmetry that should make you angry. The people making the rules don't live by them. The wealthy have bunkers with rainwater catchment systems, backup generators, food stores, medical supplies, private security. Corporations have redundant infrastructure and legal exemptions. Government officials have continuity of government plans that include off-grid facilities and independent resources. They have everything we've discussed. And they're making it illegal for you. You get dependency. They get resilience. You get compliance. They get options. You get told that independence is dangerous, unregulated, irresponsible. They quietly prepare for every contingency. So what do? You learn anyway. You learn now, while you still can. You study every skill we've talked about. You get books, physical books, not digital files that can be erased. You download guides and print them. You watch videos before they're deleted. You take notes. You practice where it's legal. You acquire materials discreetly. A rain barrel is a gardening supply. Wire is for crafts. Seeds are educational. You get license where necessary, bite the bullet, and get your ham radio license, knowing you're in a database. Then study beyond the license. Learn what they don't teach. Build what they don't approve. You find other people who understand. Carefully. Operational security matters, but you need networks. You teach each other. You distribute the knowledge. Decentralization means the knowledge can't be killed. If one person knows, it dies with them. If 100 people know, it survives. And you teach the next generation, your children, your nieces and nephews, your friends' kids. You make it normal, not paranoid, not fringe, just practical. This is how you catch rainwater. This is how you preserve food. This is how you identify medicinal plants. Skills, not ideology. Knowledge, not conspiracy. Competence, not compliance. Because when the grid fails, when the trucks stop, when the pharmacies empty, when the sewage backs up, when the systems collapse, and they will collapse, because all systems eventually do, the only thing that will matter is whether you know how to take care of yourself and the people you love. And in that moment, legality will be irrelevant. The law will not save you. The government will not help you. They'll be overwhelmed, or gone, or protecting their own. The corporations will not supply you. The supply chains will be broken. The infrastructure will not support you. It will be dead. You will have only what you know and what you can do. And if what you know is how to wait for permission, you will die waiting. So learn. Now, today, these 7 skills: rainwater harvesting, off-grid energy, independent communication, food preservation, plant medicine, trapping, sanitation. Master them, practice them where legal, understand them completely. Because the window is closing, the regulations are tightening, the knowledge is fading. And when the crisis comes, and it will, there will be 2 kinds of people. Those who sit in the dark, thirsty, hungry, sick, isolated, drowning in waste, waiting for help that never comes, surrounded by resources they don't know how to use. And those who collect rain, generate power, communicate, preserve food, treat wounds, trap game, and manage waste. Those who survive, the law will let you starve, it will let you freeze, it will let you die of thirst in the rain, but it will not let you save yourself without permission. Choose accordingly.